Okay, so good afternoon, my dear students. Welcome to our virtual class for this afternoon. Okay, so before I start, may I request everyone to mute your microphone to avoid unnecessary noise and distractions. Turn off your video as well, and please observe proper behavior during our virtual class. Okay, so I would like to introduce myself. I am Maria Ana C. Robles, your online learning coordinator or your OLC. I am one of the faculty members of College of Arts and Sciences at AMA Malolos. Okay, so for our course code, we have here UGRD ENG 102 for 213T, and this is communication skills 2. Okay, and for our topic for this afternoon, we have here process and elements of communication. Okay, so for our learning objectives, we have here at the end of the discussion, we will be able to define the communication process or define communication, and then explain the communication process, and then identify and explain the different elements of communication and communication process. So these are our objectives for this afternoon. Okay, so let's have first the communication. So last time we made mention about the introduction, or we discussed about the communication, the introduction to communication. Okay, so so communication started years ago with some of our ancestors surviving through drawings, through sounds and gestures. So along with the evolution of civilizations, various mediums of communication also emerged. So through time, technology became integrated in our language process and description. Now, communication is defined in several ways, but the fundamental or basic aspects embodies the following communication. So as a review, communication, the word communication was originated from the Latin word communicare. Actually, that is the etymology of the word communication. Communicare or communes, which means to share, unite, or join, and can be defined as the process by which people share ideas or thoughts, which can be understood by another person through a chosen medium. Okay, now this said medium can either be verbal and non-verbal channels. So in a nutshell, it is to send and receive messages using a channel. Now, communication is an activity of human being. So we people communicate every day. So from the time we wake up in the morning till we say good night in the evening, we communicate. Okay, so it is the art of transmitting information, ideas, and attitudes from one person to another. Okay, so not only information, not only ideas, but also feelings and emotions as well. So it is a process. It is the process of meaningful interaction among us human beings. We communicate through verbal or non-verbal means. Okay, so it is a personal process also. It occurs between and among people. Okay, that is why we have the elements of communication. So the primary elements are the sender and the receiver, which we will be discussed later. It involves change in behavior. It means to influence others. It is an expression of thoughts, emotions through words and actions. And this communication can be a tool for controlling and motivating people. Okay, it is a social and emotional process as well. Okay, now what are the features of communication? What are the features of communication? Okay, so it is a two-way process wherein there is a sender and there is a receiver. Okay, so the sender should send the message and the receiver should give feedback, okay, to have an effective communication. Another one, it is communication is information sharing and understanding as well. It is verbal and non-verbal means, okay? So when is communication verbal and when is communication non-verbal? So when you say verbal communication, it makes use of language or words. That is why verbal communication can be oral or written. Because when we speak orally, we make use of language. And when we write, we make use of language or words as well. Okay? And communication is non-verbal when we make use of signs, when we make use of symbols, when we make use of movements using our body parts. Okay? And then communication is never ending. Okay? It never ends. Why? Because it has what we call circular flow. When you say circular flow, just like a circle, it never ends. So we meaning to say we keep on communicating, okay? And then it is goal oriented, okay? In communication, there are goals, there are purposes, and there are objectives. Okay, and since it is circular, it has a circular flow, it is a continuous process, and it is a pervasive activity because it prevails anywhere, anytime, to anybody. Okay, so let's have here the communication process. Okay, so the communication process takes place from the sender, okay, up to the receiver using the means of communication called message channel. And as we have this communication process, we encounter what you call barriers, okay? Barriers just like noise, okay? And with that, we have the what we call what do you call that, miscommunication, or what we call misunderstanding. Okay, now the communication process pertains to the steps through which communication takes place between the sender and the receiver in an understandable manner. So it is dynamic in nature rather than static occurrence. Now, the first step, as I said a while ago, the first step, the sender does the encoding process. So this process translates the ideas or concepts into decoded message that will be communicated. Now, the symbols can take on different forms like languages, words, or gestures. Now, the message is the idea or information being conveyed by the sender or the receiver to or the listener. It includes content, structure, and style. Now, to start sending the message, the sender uses a channel, which is also known as a medium. So it is a method used to deliver the message. So most channels are either oral or written, but as technology evolves, usually or visual channels are becoming more common. So usual channels include the television, the radio, the telephone, the mobile phone, and others. Now, the message begins with the decoding stage when the appropriate channel is selected. Now, decoding is executed by the receiver. Once the message is received and reviewed, it is sent to the brain to be interpreted to appoint meaning to it. Now, successful communication occurs when the receiver correctly interprets the sender's message. Okay, so that is the communication process. Now, let's discuss one by one the elements of communication, so that there is a smooth flow of the communication of the what we call communication process. Okay, first we have, of course, the sender. Who is the sender? Okay, now a sender is a person who encodes and sends the message to the expected receiver through an appropriate channel. So in other words, the sender is the source of the message that is generated to be delivered to the receiver after appropriate stimulus from the referent. Okay, and then we have the receiver. Now, the receiver is an individual or a group of individuals intended to receive, decode, and interpret the message sent by the sender or the source of message. A receiver is also known as the decoder. Now, he is expected to have the ability and skills to receive, decode, and interpret the message. So in our case, I am the sender and you are the receiver. Okay? And then we have here another element. Of course, if there is a sender and there is a receiver, there should be a message. Okay? Now, the message is the content of communication and may contain verbal, nonverbal, or symbolic language. Okay? Now, perception and personal factors of the sender and receiver may sometimes distort this element, and the intended outcome of communication may not be achieved. For example, the same message may be communicated or perceived or sent differently by two individuals because we have a different interpretation of the message received, the message sent, and the message received. Okay, so another one is the channel. It is a medium through which message is sent or received between two or more people. Okay, now several channels can be used or to receive or to send or receive a message, from seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, and tasting. Now, so in other words, this channel is a pathway or medium by which communication takes place. So with the dawn of the new technology, we can communicate anytime, anywhere to anybody. But we have to consider selecting channels of communication, and several factors must be taken into consideration, like the availability of the channel. Is it available? Okay. Purpose, suitability, types of receivers, types of message, preference of sender and receivers, communication skills of the sender, cost, and others. So we have to consider these factors also. Now, what are the different classification of channels of communication? So we have visual channel, like facial expression, body language, posture, gesture, pictures and written words, electronic mails, mass media, and others. So for auditory channel, we have spoken words, sounds, telephone or mobile communications, delivering audio content like radio, voicemail, and others. Okay. And then we have also tactile channel, like touch sensations, therapeutic touch, and others. And we have the combined channel, like audiovisual media, consoling a person with touch and a combination of touch and spoken words. Okay. And then we have another element, which is what we call the feedback. Okay. This is very important. Wait. Okay, so feedback, it is a return message sent by the receiver to the sender. So it is most essential element of the communication process, as it shows that the receiver has understood the primary message sent by the sender, and the communication process is now considered complete. Now, this feedback is also known as the response, the reply, or the answer of the receiver to the message sent by the sender. Now, a successful communication must be a two-way, because a successful communication must be a two-way process, where the sender sends the message and receives feedback from the receiver. So communication is not communication if the receiver did not give feedback or reply to the sender, because it is a two-way process. Okay, where the sender sends the message and the receiver receives and gives feedback to the message sent by the receiver. Now, this feedback could be verbal and non-verbal. Okay, so it is verbal when it is oral or written, making use of language, and it is non-verbal, making use of signs, symbols, and movements. Okay. Now, we have also what we call compounding elements. Okay, compounding elements of communication. Okay, so these elements are not a direct part of the flow of communication process, but influence the communication process significantly indirected. These elements are interpersonal variables of the sender and the receiver and the environment where the communication process takes place. So these interpersonal variables such as perception, beliefs, values, socio-cultural background, educational educational and developmental levels, emotion, gender, physical and mental health, and others may significantly affect the communication process also. Okay? So these are the compounding elements of communication. So to sum up, the elements of communication are the sender, the receiver, the message, the channel, the feedback, and these compounding elements. Okay. Now, communication based on means of delivering the message. So as I said a while ago, it could be verbal or non-verbal. So you can deliver a message making use of verbal communication. So it occurs through the medium of spoken or written communication. Wait. So when you say verbal communication, it occurs through the medium of spoken or written communication, making use of language. So a combination of several words is used, meaning to say a combination of several words is used, and each words convey a specific meaning. Now, some important elements of verbal communication are, as I said, language, vocabulary, denotative and connotative meaning, pacing, intonation, clarity, consciousness, preciseness, comprehension, brevity, timing, and relevance. Okay. Now, what are the subtypes of verbal communication? So it could be spoken or oral communication. It could be written communication. It could be telecommunication. It could be electronic communication. Okay. Making use of technology. Okay. Now, another means of delivering the message is through nonverbal communication. Now, this communication or nonverbal communication occurs without words, okay? Where the five senses and the whole body range or the whole range of body movements, posture, gesture, facial expressions, and even silence are used for sending and receiving the message. Now, the use of body movements like our face, our facial expression, our hands, our arms, even our shoulders, our fingers, okay, even our eyes and our legs, our feet. It can make use. They can make use to send message to the receiver. Okay, and even silence. Silence indicate something. It has meaning. Okay. Now, non-verbal communication is a more accurate way of communication because it convey the true and intended meaning of the message. Okay, both both verbal and non-verbal communication can be used in communication. Both of them are important. Both of them are effective, okay, based on the message sent, how the message is being sent to the receiver, okay? So non-verbal communication may be accomplished by the following means, okay? Just like touch, or the language of touch, or what we call haptics, okay? Through eye contact, okay? Through facial expression, posture, gesture, physical appearance, sound, and silence, okay? So this is the what we call the communication process and the different elements of communication, okay? So again, for our communication elements, we have the sender, the receiver, the message, the feedback, the channel, and the compounding elements like beliefs, norms, attitudes, cultures, and others, okay? And as a means of delivery, communication can be verbal or non-verbal, okay? And using nonverbal communication, we can accomplish it by several means, okay? So that concludes our virtual class for this afternoon. Thank you for attending. Keep safe, everyone, and God bless us all. Thank you.
Thank you po, ma'am.